We're going to talk about leadership today. And this is actually my pet topic. This is something I've been very focused on for a number of years. We see the need for leadership in our businesses, and we we see it everywhere. I mean, we're seeing leadership voids at our government. I mean, there's some good examples of some positive things, but for the most part, there's been a leadership void and or just bad leadership, and that is a real problem. Um, it's hard to define what leadership is, but it's easy to see what it isn't, and that's where this is the problem with leadership is it's fuzzy. There's no here's the five things you have to master and you've got it. There's little subtleties here and there, and there's always little situations that create other issues. So we're just going to walk through leadership today. We're not going to cover every possible topic inside leadership, but the goal today is to give you an overview of what leadership is, how to develop it, and just to get you started if you haven't focused on it in the past. And if you have focused on it, maybe this would just be a nice refresher, and maybe there will be something that triggers your interest on, oh, I need to do that. So let's just talk about leadership for a minute. What is it? It is the skill to take a organization from where you are now, your current reality, to a better future. That's as best a way to describe it as I can. It's really, I've heard it said, from here to there. How do we go from where we're at now to where we need to be? That's a huge thing because it requires a lot of different pieces. So this is a little different than management, though, because when the leader says we're going from here to there, the manager is one that focuses on keeping us on track. And that's the part of management. We're all leaders and managers because we're doing both. We're having to keep everybody focused on where we're going, but we're also, we may be managing the detailed performances. So that's something that we wear both hats. Bigger organizations, though, there are separate people. The CEO is the leader, but the chief operating officer is the manager. And so we have to know what both are, just because they require slightly different skill sets, or actually completely different skill sets at one level. So the other part of leadership is, and this is where we're getting into the good leadership and what, a lot of people might call servant leadership, is you have a passion for the cause. If whatever you're leading, if you're leading a business, that you're passionate about that cause. Now, that cause, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but that cause could be money just to pay bills for your family, and it could be serving a community, or your cause is to develop employees. I know of a business here not too far from St. Louis that the owner, it's a furniture company, and they make furniture, and his cause is he hires convicts, or people are released from prison, and gives them jobs. And he's got a thriving business, and he's probably making more money than you can shake a stick at. But the point is, he's focused on, that's his cause, and it's not about him. And that's the other part here. As the leader, it can't be about you. When it's strictly about you, then it becomes a problem. And we see this too often with politicians of either party. So I'm not throwing stones at any one, but it becomes about them. And what happens when it's about them? It breaks your trust. And that's why politicians aren't trusted. So, and we're going to talk about this here in a minute as far as trust, because that's a key piece of leadership. So who is a leader? Okay. And I'm going to share my screen here real quick. And, you should have gotten this handout. And this is one where this is just a real brief overview, but, who is a leader? Obviously a CEO of a business or a manager who has to lead his team. It could be a teammate. You're leading other people you're working with because you're influencing them. It could be a soccer mom. It could be a teacher, a coach, a parent. Leaders are all over the place. It's actually almost getting to be a bad word when you think about influencer with the social media, and they're influencing people, but that's not really a leader, because they're not trying to influence people to take them to a better spot. They're trying to sell stuff, and it's all about them. So a leader is really about helping somebody get to that better spot, and you're really focused on other people. And we can have self-leadership too. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But so, there's almost everybody's a leader at different levels. Some people lead major organizations, and it's a lot of people. Soccer mom may have 3 kids, and she helps them develop, and she helps spouse. She could be a great leader. These are the kind of things that we have to think about a little differently when we're talking about leadership. And so what are the components of leadership? And, this is just a brief overview, and there's a ton of different subsets, and you could argue about a lot of this, but first it starts with the vision. Where are we going? When a husband and wife take kids on vacation, they have a destination in place because they think it's going to be good for the family. It's good. They're going to have fun. They're going to educational, maybe, whatever that purpose is, or just build community. But that they have that vision. Same is true for our businesses. We got to have a vision for what we want out of our business. Where do we want it to go? And, the other part here with the vision, unless it's somewhat grounded in reality to where it's achievable, it has to be something that is achievable. We get into goals and all that. And then we have to build trust. The leader has to build trust, or else the people won't go with you. And that's the part that, like I said, we're seeing that with the politicians right now, because people don't trust them. But we're also seeing it in businesses. There's this breakdown of trust. You're seeing it with the Major League Baseball and the Players Association, because it's, how do you restart the season? It's because of a lack of trust, and that creates a barrier. And you're not going to be able to achieve your goals if you don't have that trust. Leaders' other component here is motivation. You got to help inspire, give them reasons. Obviously people need to be self-motivated, but we also have to make sure that what they're motivated to do matches up with what our vision is. And then it really can compound and really do some great things. This leads into development of the team, training, coaching, mentoring. All these things are giving them jobs that are stretches that help develop them. And another big component here is they set boundaries. And, this is also another word for core values, because that's what core values are boundaries. We're not going to go outside of certain lanes. So if respect for other people is a core value, and you don't respect them through sexual harassment or whatever you want, whatever the problem is, you violated that core value. And that screws up your team faster than almost anything. And then the leader has to enforce these boundaries. So if you have a key salesperson who's doing phenomenal and you feel you're dependent on that person, but that person cheats on their expense reports, Okay, they got to go. And that sounds ridiculous, but it's demoralizing to everybody else. Or if that person treats other people like garbage. These are the things where the leader has to enforce it. And then they have to clear the hurdles for the team. And that's removing barriers so that we can achieve our vision. Now, steps to develop this are, this is not, there's no ironclad, here's what we got to do, but we really want to start with reading and read other things. There's a lot of good books and stuff that you could look at. Um, this is I put together a little list that I emailed to you. These are some great books for getting started on leadership. And, if you have questions, please ask me. We'll talk about that here in a second, but you need to develop yourself. You need to think about things in different ways. Then we start with ourselves. We got to get our own stuff figured out. Why are we doing this? Are we somebody that people will follow? Are we honest, ethical, trustworthy? Do we keep our promises? Those types of things are important. And we discover our why. Why are we doing this? And this is all tied into the self. Why is our business in existence? Why is our organization? Who does it serve? From there, you develop your strategy and tactics. And then, this is part of leadership, is developing these things. And then we cast the vision and really say, you know what, this is where we're going. And here's how we're going to get there. And then you got to communicate it, and communication has to inspire. And then we also got to get communication back with feedback. This is a big thing. Then I really should put this about 3 times in here. Communicate, communicate, communicate. That's the real big thing here, is we have to keep communicating. Then we evaluate the feedback and evaluate what's going on. And then we adjust our tactics. And we go back to the top. And maybe there's a new area we need to read about, we need to develop. And it's a constant cycle. You're never there. So this is, like I said, I'm going through this real quickly, but it's just to give you a starting point for how to develop this. Now, I provided some resources. I showed you the book list. And this is a great thing. If something hits your fancy and it's like, oh, I'd really like to work on that, that's great. If you have questions about certain areas, I'd be glad to help you with that. But also at the bottom, Global Leadership Summit's one area that has been the most beneficial to me besides some of these books. I've been going to it for 18 years. I highly encourage it. It's this summer. It's going to be a little different this year with the pandemic. But if you have questions on that, please email me and I'll give you some information. GLS Next has a lot of the previous year's talks. Most of it's free. And again, this is a way to develop. And that's what's critical. So that's what I want to work on. What's the key takeaway? This leadership is the missing link in all of our businesses. It's going to determine whether we succeed or not. Occasionally people get lucky with just an idea, but most of the time leadership is the key, especially if we're trying to build bigger businesses and that may pass down to the next generation. If we're going to sell them, whatever it is. And leadership needs to be developed. None of us are natural leaders. Some people more so than others. We have different gifts, but even the ones that have a gift of leadership, they focus on development. And I know some very high level leaders, and that's the key. They keep focusing on it, because the business is only going to go as far as the leader allows. It's going to be limited by the leadership. And also the other part here, and this is the other side of it, is the business is only going to be as healthy as the leader allows. And this is getting the right culture. And that's, again, it's a key part, but that helps allow the business to go further. So with that, that's pretty much what I wanted to cover on leadership. There's one other thing. If you're interested, you do need to let me know, and I can email you this list of questions that would help you evaluate, your leadership. It might trigger a question as far as, this is an area I don't know that much about, or I may need to improve. So if that is the case, you just need to email me and I can send that to you. But with that, that's pretty much what I wanted to cover today. And from now, I'll address any questions that you might have, and then so please either put them in the chat box, or you can shoot me an email. So thanks again for coming. So let's start looking at a few questions. I had a couple already. There's one here. It's like, I own a business already, but I don't feel comfortable leading. I'm not just don't feel like I'm a natural leader. Can I really improve? And this is something that it really doesn't matter where you start from, but you can improve. And I can look at my own situation, and if you compared me now where I was 18 years ago, I think it's night and day different. Hopefully night and day better, but that's a side issue. The point is, we can improve some skills. Their communication skills are one. 18 years ago, if I had said, or somebody had said you were going to do a Zoom call or a speak in public, I would have spent a half hour in the bathroom. I was deathly afraid of talking like this in front of people. That's things that can be developed. I'm still not great at it. That's not the point, but I'm better than I was. Part of that's just from preparation, but everything can be developed. You can be better communicators. You can be better visionary. Part of it's just listening to people, watching some of those talks on Global Leadership Summit and GLS Next. That'll help you with a lot of this, because you can do this. Everybody can do better. So I do believe this. Let's see. Let me look at a couple of these other questions. Okay. Each person has a different definition of a leader. While I fulfill my vision of leadership, the success of the team and the business as a whole depends on their view of the leader. What are your thoughts here? Yeah, everybody does look at this a little different, and that's good, actually. That's but that's where there's a couple pieces here. One, communication. And I told you, I would put communication in that one chart, 3 times or 4 times. We have to keep communicating. And so while we have a team, say we got 10 people on the team, we might have to keep going back and forth and making sure that they understand us and that we understand them. And a lot of this gets back to the one skill that I didn't specifically list out, but it's part of communication, is listening, and listening to what they are saying, and so that you can understand what they want. Stephen Covey says, seek first to understand so that you can be understood. And that's the key thing here, is listening to them. The other part is feedback. And because feedback tells you where people are coming from. And so, for instance, say we have an employee that isn't quite on the same page. It's a good person, but just came from maybe a dysfunctional place before, whatever it might be. By getting feedback from them, you get some insight into them. And that's the part, and it may not be right. All feedback's not right. That's not the point. But you start learning. And again, if they're doing it in good faith, you can start getting your view of the leader and theirs more in alignment. Feedback is the one area, and this is probably the quickest way to improve your leadership, is getting honest feedback and not being defensive about it. Because, somebody tells me I screw up, or, if I get off this Zoom call and I get an email saying, hey, you screwed this up, and it was, it wasn't bad, it wasn't good, it was a waste of my time. My initial thought is to get defensive. But if I can get past that and say, okay, why are they saying that? I know that person. It's a good person. Well, once I start learning that, then I start digging in and I ask them about it, they will appreciate the fact that I'm asking. And that opens up communication and that builds that trust. So this is an area that is really ripe for helping everybody. I do highly recommend a book, Thanks for the Feedback, by Sheila Heen. And she's actually been one of the speakers at the Global Leadership Summit, because it helps you think this through. Because if we can improve our feedback, we can really improve our businesses. So let's see, I got another question here. Aren't all leaders extroverts? I'm an introvert, can I really lead? And this is an area that people have some different ideas, or they preconceived notions about it. But really, a lot of leaders are introverts. And the extroverts and introverts are more where you get your energy. But leading, some people are great as far as public speaking and being out front and all that, and they like the roar of the crowds or whatever it is. Other people are just quietly determined to go about and do their thing and help others, and they will speak and they'll communicate and they'll listen. And some of the most effective leaders are introverts. So it doesn't really matter where where your skill set is, because this is something that all of us can improve and we can use from wherever we're at. Let's see. Let me see. Let me see. There's another question here. Why do so many leaders fail? And this is another area that a lot of leaders fail because they're not focused on the mission. And this gets back to what I talked about originally. Sometimes they're just too focused on themselves, or maybe they were focused on the mission to begin with, and then it became about themselves. Either way, it creates a problem, because when you're not focused on serving others, and it's just about you, sooner or later you will fail. And we're seeing that with the politicians right now, and it's because of the internal focus as opposed to the external focus. Let's see. One more question here. What is self-leadership? And I alluded to that earlier and I didn't really get back to it. Self-leadership is really about getting control of yourself. It's about discipline. It's about making sure you have your own internal goals. Because if you can do this, then it helps provide the people that are following you, it helps provide them with reassurance that you're going to do what you say. Are you consistent? Do you, listen to people? These are the kind of things that if we can focus on that sometimes and make sure we're being the best version of us that we can, that really helps. We're still not perfect. Nobody is. It doesn't matter. People accept that, but we're trying our best and we're listening. Let's see. I have one other question on this. It goes back to the introvert thing. basically the question is, if you're an introvert and, if you're having to be on all the time, as demanded from a leader, it drains your energy and creativity. And that is correct. And so the issue is when you are an introvert, and this is a matter of self-knowledge and again, the self-leadership part, sometimes you have to figure out how to get by. And so for instance, if you're an introvert, maybe you have to say, you know what, I get my energy from private reading and meditation in the morning. I need to make sure I do that every morning and get grounded. And then I'm more ready for the day. Maybe I need a break at 11 o'clock and another one at 3. And I need quiet time for, take a nap, or I just need to focus on some personal time to re-energize. You just have to identify that. And whatever that is, then you set up your schedule along those lines. Because introverts get their energy internally, then they have to be on. Now, the other flip side of this is, say you're an extrovert and you have an employee that's an introvert. Again, this gets back to understanding their situation, and maybe they need some time middle of the day when you would like to just, hey, we need to go. And they're like, no, I need 15 minutes to read the paper, do whatever, just to get re-energized. It's a matter of figuring out what is going to work best for your team too. So that's the other part of this. It's not just us, it's recognizing some of these qualities in others. And so that is a tough thing to manage, but it is something that it definitely can be. And it's just a matter of addressing it. So no, that was a great question there. Any other, and there's a great book out. Susan Cain wrote about introverts and extroverts, and I think that's her name. I'd have to double check this. And she also, again, she spoke at the Global Leadership Summit. I keep referring to that, but I keep getting ideas from it every year. So that's why I do use it. But there's a video out on her talk from a few years ago. And again, TED Talks, there's some of these things out there, just start looking for some of these things that will help you and figuring out what you need. So we're about up on time. It's about 11:30. If anybody has any other questions, please let me know. And like I said, if you would like a copy of those leadership evaluation questions, I'd be glad to send that to you. Just email me and we'll get that out to you. Thanks again. The recording will be available this afternoon sometime. And then we're actually getting really, really close to having the YouTube channel set up. So, I mean, it's actually set up and we're not quite finished with it. So then all these prior recordings will be up there. So anyway, thanks again. I hope everybody has a great weekend and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks.